All right, Justin, with the first overall pick in this 2023 rookie redraft mock draft, I am not going to go with Bijan Robinson. I don't know if this is a hot take at this point. I don't know if maybe this is more of consensus, but because this is a super flex league, I will take Anthony Richardson here at the 1.01 as the QB1 in this class, as a potential future top 5 dynasty quarterback. I mean, out the gate, minus the injuries, he has looked fantastic. I mean, he has 2 top 5 weeks. Those are actually the 2 weeks that he stayed completely healthy. Another top 20 week in the first week whenever he left injured. And then even though last week, he only had a couple points because he left way too early in the game. But the 2 games that he has started and finished were top 5. He has 4 rushing touchdowns already in the essentially like 2 3/4 games played. He has 4 rushing touchdowns. And I think the most surprising aspect of Anthony Richardson is that he has looked pretty good as a passer, which has just kind of been the cherry on top to the rushing production that we all knew that he was going to have and be capable of doing. That passing production, though, is what can vault him into that like Lamar Jackson 2019 range, a Josh Allen kind of thing, a Jalen Hurts kind of thing. And that could be how he gets to being a top 5 dynasty quarterback. So am I wrong taking him over Bijan Robinson in Superflex? Are you there with me? Or, am I is just a little bit too much?
You're not wrong. And honestly, I wanted you to go first because I didn't want to be the one that had to say I'm taking somebody other than Bijan first. Like Anthony Richardson has looked the part of a superstar fantasy quarterback. Like again, you talked about the rushing. We've talked about the passing being better than expected. I think the evolution of Anthony Richardson is going to be really interesting to watch because we don't know what he's going to develop into as a passer. Right? How high does that ceiling go? How long does his career last? That's the big question. But through the first quarter of the season, the first quarter of his first season, he has looked the part of a superstar fantasy quarterback. So you can't really ask him to do much else when he's healthy, when he's on the field. He's basically, it feels like an auto 20 with the potential to go for 30 plus. So he's my 101 also. I'm right there with you. But obviously, Bijan's not going to fall much farther. I think that needs to be said. Like he is the 102. He is my next pickup because as good as CJ Stroud and Puka and a bunch of other rookies have been, Bijan Robinson is as advertised. He is 11th currently in fantasy points per game. That is with the 24th highest opportunity share among running backs. He is top 10 in expected fantasy points per game. So basically, even while he's splitting work with Tyler Algier, he's delivering on the expectation. And I do think as we get further and further into the season, Bijan continues to sap up more and more and more of that opportunity, which I think ultimately should vault him into top 5, top 2, top 3, and really push CMC for that 101 spot. So Bijan is everything we expected him to be, even with limited usage. I mean, we all saw the catch last week, right? The overhead view where he catches it behind his back and just makes it look unfair. The dude's an absolute superstar. So I'm not going to let him slip past the second pick here.
Yeah, and let me be clear. By me taking Anthony Richardson 101, again, that's just because it was Superflex, and that was in no way, shape, or form because Bijan Robinson is not as good as we thought he was, or
No, you hate him. You hate Bijan. That's what's happening.
that's if that's the way to go about it, then sure. But he has been absolutely phenomenal. It's just in super flex leagues, you have to put the premium on the quarterback position. It's just the unfortunate nature of the position that Bijan plays. But like you said, advertised, he's been a top 24 running back all 5 games. His worst week in terms of fantasy production, he still had double-digit points, and he was still a top 24 running back. That was back in week 3 when he only had 60 yards, only 60 yards, and 14 total touches. But all the other games, I mean, you're looking at 16 opportunities, 24 opportunities, 16, 19, 16. He's only scored 2 touchdowns. And like you said, like the opportunity share is still not there for like a complete workhorse bell cow running back, at least in this Atlanta Falcons offense, because he is splitting reps and time with Tyler Algier. So, I mean, if you imagine if Algier got hurt, or if he continues to separate away from Algier and just be the completely better running back, as we all know that he is, and we can see that he is, and he gets more and more opportunity as the season goes on. I mean, like he just separates himself more and more as the RB1 in Dynasty. All right, so with the 1.03, I'm going with the guy that you just mentioned. I'm going with CJ Stroud as the quarterback 2 in this class. He has just looked absolutely phenomenal through 5 games. I mean, he's on a 17 game pace of almost 5,000 passing yards and 24 touchdowns. Has yet to even throw an interception. Knock on wood. He's going to throw an interception now. I'm sorry to tell you guys, but has yet to throw one at least. Over 186 total pass attempts. And I mean, you could say that's a massive number. 186 attempts through 5 games. That's like, 30 something pass attempts per game. So you could say maybe the yardage is because of that. Well, he's averaging 7.9 yards per attempt as well, which is a fantastic number. And everything for Houston looks so much better because CJ Stroud has just so quickly developed. And I mean, I honestly, I don't see how he's not a top 10 dynasty quarterback. I think you can make a case for him to be even higher than that over a couple other guys because he is a rookie. He's doing so well. It really just feels like Justin Herbert's rookie season. That's how this feels for CJ Stroud. So he is my 1.03. And if you have him right now, you've just got to be, over the moon excited for his potential down the road.
And I think the only piece of it that doesn't feel like Justin Herbert is the rushing upside. Like Herbert's rushing upside, you can get 400, 500, 600 yards in the right season, right? 600 might be lofty, but Stroud has 57 rush yards through 5 games. So you're not getting a ton on the ground from him. And honestly, what's crazy is he hasn't been an accurate quarterback. For as gaudy as the statistical numbers are, you're looking at a guy that's 30th in red zone completion percentage, 25th when under pressure, 28th true completion percentage if you strip away the throwaways, and he still looked good. All I'm seeing is a guy that just has room to grow, and the fact that he's still putting up the type of production he is with some of the deficiencies in terms of completion percentage. I'm not using that as a knock. I'm using that as a way to say, look at what the ceiling could be as he grows and learns to read a defense, because that doesn't happen day one. He's, again, in his 5th game, going to be in his 6th start. There is so much room for him to get better, and seeing what we're already seeing, if you don't have an Anthony Richardson, a Bijan Robinson level player, Stroud is the 101 in most draft classes.
And I think another thing that you can kind of throw into his continual development, not just necessarily this year, but as his career progresses, is imagine if they actually give him a quote unquote alpha wide receiver.
Right.
Nico Collins has far surpassed, I think, anything that anybody even thought that he was going to do. I mean, I know that you were on Nico all offseason, all summer.
Not to this level. This is blown my mind.
He's been fantastic. Tank
Yeah.
Dell has looked great. Even Robert Woods has been kind of sneaky and solid for a wide receiver 3 on a team. And so just imagine if they give him a quote unquote alpha wide receiver, a 1st round level talent in the 2024 class. The unfortunate part is that for whatever reason, they traded away their 1st round pick to move up to go get Will Anderson. They still have Cleveland's from the Deshaun Watson trade. So that could potentially still be, a top 20 pick, which in next year's wide receiver class will still probably be a fantastic prospect. It could be Emeka Egbuka or Malik Neighbors or, Xavier Worthy. Imagine one of those guys with CJ Stroud. That would just be even more amazing for his prospects and future down the road for Dynasty.
Moving over to the 104, I think it's finally time for a wide receiver to come off the board. Our new rookie wide receiver 1. It is not JSN. It is not Jordan Addison. It is not Zay Flowers. It has to be Puka Nacua. At this point, what else could he have possibly done to have us move him any higher? He is on pace for the greatest rookie season of all time. Truly, there is no one else right now in his stratosphere when it comes to rookie production. You're looking at a guy that is on pace for over 1,900 yards. And yes, I understand the concerns of, a lot of this happened without Cooper Kupp. Well, we just watched Cooper Kupp come back, and Puka goes over 20 fantasy points. He has another 29% target share game. Puka has done every single thing we would want from a rookie wide receiver. He is a top 12 dynasty wide receiver at this point, as far as I'm concerned. And the only reason he's not higher, I'm pretty sure it's just because he's named Puka Nacua and it's not JSN. If this was JSN, he would be in the Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase tier. There would be no other questions. Puka, we need to not overreact to that level, I think, right? With a day 3 wide receiver tied to Matthew Stafford or whatever else it may be. But I mean, at this point, he has to be ranked here. I don't see how he cannot be the rookie wide receiver 1.
The only way that you don't put him inside your top 12, your top 10 even is like you are just clutching too hard to what you believed prior to the NFL season, prior to these 5 games being played is, that you are still looking at Puka Nacua as the 5th round wide receiver out of a semi small school. And he had kind of mid-tier athleticism, was not fantastic, ran like a mid to high 4.5. His burst score wasn't all that great either. You're still holding on to who that Puka Nacua was. And that's at least in this Rams offense right now with Matthew Stafford. And like you said, even with Cooper Kupp coming back, I mean, you just look at the fantasy production. Like he has 4 games over 20 fantasy points, 2 of which were over 30. Like most wide receivers would kill to have one 30-point fantasy game in an entire season. He has 2 in his first 5 games ever in his career.
We're not going to do the Amon-Ra St. Brown thing. I'm not doing it. I did that. And it was like, well, he only earned this freakish target share and had this great production because nobody was there. But at this point, like players don't accidentally do that. Bad players don't accidentally pull 30% target shares. Like it's just not something that will happen over the course of a season or an extended period of time like this. So he has the capability to be a top 3 dynasty wide receiver by the end of the year.
All right, 105 now, Justin. I'm just going to complete the quarterback trifecta for the rookies. I took Richardson 101, Stroud 103, and I'm going to take Bryce Young 1.05. And really, I feel like he just still kind of has to be here. I know he's been, I don't know if underwhelming is the correct word for Bryce Young. I just feel like it's much more of how a rookie quarterback should produce, especially a rookie quarterback that went to a team that very deservedly deserved the 1.01. Like like imagine a rookie quarterback going to the Cleveland Browns like 5-6 years ago. Like that's essentially what we have going on here with the Carolina Panthers. We knew that he was going to struggle, or at least wasn't going to break out super early on. He was going to rely heavily on his own personal talent to overcome a lot of things in Carolina. I'm still sticking with my pre-draft evaluation for him. I'm trusting the process here because at the end of the day, just a 21-year-old quarterback in a bad situation right now that should hopefully improve. I'm trusting the process here. Are you still doing that as well? Do you still have him top 5, or do you see something a little different with Bryce Young that has you a little bit more apprehensive?
No, I'm trusting it because here's the thing. Like we know so little about quarterbacks during their rookie season, right? Like we can love the guys that flash. That is what you want to see. But a guy that doesn't flash in their rookie season doesn't necessarily mean he's doomed or he's not going to develop and turn into the guy we expected him to. You talked about the situation is not great. Adam Thielen, from a production standpoint for fantasy, has been, he's been spectacular, but they don't really have much else. And if your number one option is Adam Thielen at this age, at this point in his career, who can't really get down the field, can't stretch the field really whatsoever, like that's going to limit what the overall numbers look like for Bryce Young, even if Thielen puts up fantasy production, right? And you see that even kind of playing out in the numbers for Bryce Young. He's 34th in yards per attempt, 5.2 yards, basically the polar opposite of CJ Stroud, who has Tank Dell, who has been awesome and is a deep threat, Nico Collins, who has played like a true alpha on the outside. You have Adam Thielen, Terrace Marshall, DJ Chark, Jonathan Mingo, who I don't think has lived up to the expectations either. Like, it's just bad. So he's in a bad spot, and I think he's made the most of it. He's been accurate, more accurate than CJ Stroud has been at least. But again, he's throwing much shorter balls. So it's difficult to push him much lower because I'm not going to say I'm out on a quarterback after 5 games. But it's not like fun drafting or rostering Bryce Young right now. Speaking of players that it's not necessarily fun to roster them, it's not fun to draft them right now, I think that fits the mold for the 106. For me, it's Jahmyr Gibbs, and he has been underwhelming to say the least. I don't think that's an overreaction, but I'm not going to push him much lower because I still buy in to first-round draft capital in running backs. Like players that get that kind of draft capital typically pan out, right? We looked at all of the profiles preseason and saw what Jahmyr Gibbs could be. He has not been that to start the year, right? The positives are he still has just under a 15% target share. He has dominated through the air, at least in terms of earning targets. That's what you want to see. He's filling that role very, very well. They gave him 17 carries in a game without David Montgomery, so they trusted him on the ground. We've seen the explosive plays, but unfortunately, right, the Lions are doing what the Lions do, which is use a heavy committee backfield. And he's not necessarily thriving because of it. He's probably suffering, I think, in that instance because he's not getting red zone work. That is David Montgomery. And Montgomery has been an absolute hammer. He has filled that role to a T better than Jamal Williams did, I think. And he looks to be the guy that they signed him to be. So unfortunately for Jahmyr Gibbs, the overall ceiling has not shown up yet. I don't think it's not going to. I think over the course of his career, he's going to be really damn good. I think even by the end of this season, you look at a player that kind of puts the start of his career behind him and breaks off some big runs for touchdowns. Right? He does potentially Devon Achane type things.
The funny thing about Jahmyr Gibbs is like if you look at what he did over the first 4 games of the season and the first 4 games of his career, like we're talking about a running back who is on pace for almost 1,100 total yards on 220 touches. If you had said that at the very beginning of the summer, that hey, just a heads up, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get 220 touches. He's going to accumulate 1,100 yards. That is what Jahmyr Gibbs is going to do in year 1. Do you consider that a win or not? And I feel like most people would say that that would be a win. It just feels really bad right now because he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. The touch volume has been a little inconsistent on a weekly basis. Like you said, he did get 17 rush attempts in the one game without David Montgomery, but he only had 2 targets. But the week before that, he had 9 targets, but he had 7 rush attempts. So each of those things has happened for Gibbs just at different times throughout the season so far. And then he missed week 5. And I think just the thing with what's happening with his dynasty value right now is that he is not doing what Devon Achane has done. He has not done even what Kyron Williams has done. Like I feel like people were just like, Kyron Williams can get all this work in LA. Why can't Jahmyr Gibbs get this? They paid the 12th overall pick to go up and get him. Why would you not give him more of the ball? But I feel like this is kind of more of what we should have expected before the season started, with David Montgomery already have been there, what we had already seen this offense and this coaching staff do with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. But Jahmyr, 1,100 yards, 220 touches. Like,
Yeah.
it has to come at some point, and he has to explode soon, I think.
Before we get to the 107, guys, if you want to see round 2, that is going to be exclusive to the DLF YouTube members. So if you want to check that out, check out the link in the bio, guys. Look at the bonus content tier for the DLF YouTube membership. You're going to get round 2 of this rookie redraft, as well as a ton of other content, right? Extensions on the 5 moves to make video, another weekly video from Addison or myself every single week as well. So check that out, guys. Help support Addison and I as we do this basically year round at this point. All right, let's get back into it.
All right, so with the 1.07, I'm going to move over to the wide receiver position now. The wide receiver 2, and again, kind of like my Anthony Richardson pick, it's not, I think, who most people would expect. Maybe you're expecting this, but I'm going to take Jordan Addison here as the rookie wide receiver 2 here at the 1.07. Basically the same exact ADP that he had prior to or right after the NFL draft, just with different names above and below him. But nothing for me has really deterred me or steered me away from saying that Jordan Addison is not the guy that I thought he was before the season started. I mean, he has looked fantastic. He has 3 touchdowns in 5 games. And a lot of them have come on kind of deep plays, field stretcher kind of plays, which is great. And the raw target numbers are still there. I mean, minus the weird Carolina game 2 weeks ago, he only had 1 target, but the last week's game, he had 9 total targets. He had 8 targets the week before against the Chargers, before Carolina, 5 targets, 6 targets. Like it looks still solid from a raw number perspective for Jordan Addison. And now we have the opportunity to see what he possibly can be as the wide receiver 1 in this Vikings offense with Justin Jefferson going on IR. To me, this was the primary reason why I took Addison here as like the wide receiver 2 above JSN and a couple other guys was I think that over the next few weeks, we could potentially see Addison, his value rise drastically because of what he's about to, or what we think he's about to do with Justin Jefferson out. I think if you were drafting a rookie draft right now, you could potentially make an argument for him to go even higher because of Jefferson's injury.
Like you said, the target numbers have been there, week 4 aside, and now you have the opportunity to be a guy on a team that is going to pass a lot. Like Minnesota is going to pass a ton, and they get Chicago right out of the gate. So this very first week could be that week we look and say, yeah, Jordan Addison deserved to be a first round pick. He deserves to be the wide receiver too, because look at what he's capable of doing when operating with all of the target share, with operating with everything in front of him. So the guy at the 108 that I've kind of alluded to, it's Zay Flowers. He is now the wide receiver 3. Some people may have expected to see JSN in this spot. You can't ignore, though, what Zay Flowers has done, right? Again, he has the first round draft capital. Baltimore takes a shot. They're clearly looking for somebody to lead that wide receiver group, and that's what he's done. 28.8% target share through the first 5 weeks. He has 40 targets. He has earned out of the gate, the trust of Lamar Jackson, the trust of the offensive coordinator. They are drawing up plays for him consistently. He is a focal point of the offense. And while the production, right, the raw numbers have not been there, everything that sits just beneath that, that surface level box score is what you want to see, right? He's running 100% of routes. He has a target rate of 23%. So he's running a lot of routes. He's getting targeted consistently when he's out there, and he's just getting targeted often. So all of that is what you want to see from a guy that's played 5 games. You want the production to rise with those numbers. But I think that's going to come in time. I don't think we've seen the best of Zay Flowers.
I figured out why you like Zay Flowers so much. He is Deontay Johnson. He is the Baltimore Ravens Deontay Johnson.
Do you remember my comp preseason? Deontay Johnson.
That's literally what he has become. I mean, you look at the game logs. He has 3 games with 10 or more targets and hit 9 for 78, 8 for 48, 5 for 73. I mean, he's on a 17 game pace of 1,100 receiving yards on 100 receptions. And the best part, he hasn't scored yet. What if he doesn't score all year? I mean, that's Deontay Johnson right there.
Don't do that piece of it. But look, if you guys
regression, man.
If you watch this channel enough, I just like dudes that earn targets. That's what I love. Deontay Johnson. I've been on the Keenan Allen train through the injuries my entire life. Michael Pittman, Puka Nacua, all of these guys, they just earn targets. And that is what I care about, because you can't score if you don't get the ball. And Zay Flowers gets the ball more than most people in the NFL. Again, as a rookie, he is 12th in the league in target share. As a rookie, it's been 5 games. That is, he has arrived in terms of the skill set to earn targets. He does it better than anybody else on that roster.
Moving over to the running back position, I feel like this is a name that people have been just kind of waiting for. They're probably surprised that we took Jordan Addison, that we took Zay Flowers. Honestly, some people might even be surprised that we took Jahmyr Gibbs ahead of Achane after what he has done for the past 3 weeks. Now, the unfortunate part is that he is injured right now, so there is that coming into play, unfortunately. But based on the last 3 weeks, I mean, 3 plus 100-yard games. One of them was a 200-yard game. One of them was a 150-yard game. 5 rushing touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns. I mean, this dude is just a home run hitter. He is averaging over 12 yards per carry. Everything is just on the up for Achane. This Miami Dolphins offense is exactly the offense that is perfect for a player like him. My only concern is, I mean, this can't keep up, right? He can't average 12 yards per carry every single week, right? This has to stop at some point. And I'm just wondering, how low is the floor? If he's not hitting a 70-yard touchdown, which seems very likely, like I said, every single time he touches the ball, it seems like he can do it. But if he's not doing that, and he's not being the workhorse, he's not seeing a ton of targets either. I mean, he has 11 targets in his 4 games played. And I just don't know how this holds up with that kind of volume, unless he drastically increases volume or something wild changes.
When you want to talk about unsustainable, I think if you look it up in the dictionary, it's just a picture of Achane. Here's some numbers. I'm looking through player profiler right now. Yards per true carry, which devalues breakaway runs, right? How consistent are you when you carry the ball? He's at 9 yards per carry. That's first. Yard Yards created per touch. 7.1. That is first. Nobody's close. You can look at yards per touch, 11 yards. Nobody else is close. He's first. Juke rate, 45%. Nobody else is close. Breakaway run rate, 18%. Nobody else is close. It just across the board, he is the most efficient player that I have ever seen. And yes, the other the other foot has to drop. The other shoe has to drop at some point. That is the only concern, right? The size concerns come back into play when you see him with a knee injury. These types of things, that is just me poking holes in what is otherwise been the perfect start to a career. Like, that's it. That is the only concern, is he's been too efficient, which I guess jokes on us for making that like a negative somehow. But like, it's just, he probably should be higher. As I'm watching this, God, he should be higher. The dude's insane. Now to pick 10, the 110 here, I think is a player people may have expected to see sooner as well. It's Jaxon Smith-Njigba, previously our wide receiver 1, now coming in as our wide receiver 4 here. And the production has been rough. It has been basically non-existent, which is like not what you want to see from a player with, the excitement we had around him. But you're looking at a guy that just is not getting utilized down the field whatsoever. His highest air yard share, or his highest, raw air yards in a game, 26 right now. And yes, he does have a 16% target share. Like, that is not the end of the world. He's seeing volume. It's just really unvaluable volume, or invaluable. I don't know what the word is, but it's not good. It's not valuable. That's a better way to put it. It's not valuable. Like, it just hasn't been what you want, right? He's yet to top 10 fantasy points. And some of this is expected, right? If you guys watched our 5 moves to make video, I talk about buying low on JSN. I'm still buying JSN, but just not in relation to these other rookie wide receivers. And the reason is the situation is gross right now. Coming off of a broken wrist, still fighting for targets with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, right? Geno Smith has not been as good as he was last season. So there's all these other pieces that have, kind of attributed to him not living up to hype. You can't put him ahead of these other guys that have just drastically outperformed him in other metrics for this rookie class, right? This class is already very close to begin with, and he hasn't separated. He hasn't flashed like these other players have. And I think that's the only reason they're starting to push ahead of him and he's sliding down. It's not because we don't buy into JSN. It's just that we're buying into the other players around him right now.
The main issue with Jaxon Smith-Njigba right now is that the Seattle is just not throwing a whole bunch. I mean, you said that his target share was relatively good. I mean, week 1, he had a 19% target share. Last week, prior to the bye, he had a 23% target share. The actual target numbers, though, 5 and 6. Seattle's they're just not throwing the ball. Kenneth Walker has looked fantastic already to start the season, and they've won games pretty big with, success on the ground with Kenneth Walker. And I feel like that's kind of the formula that Seattle obviously wants to do by having Kenneth Walker, by having Zach Charbonnet, despite having DK and Lockett and now Smith-Njigba. It's a weird, like, the West Coast version of Atlanta, but it's working for them just like it's kind of working for Atlanta. And Jaxon Smith-Njigba is just kind of, the guy that's on the outside looking in, essentially. I do think that we could see maybe some of that start to tip the other way. Maybe Kenneth Walker isn't as efficient or doesn't get as much run because they're facing better teams. I mean, they've played the Rams so far and the Panthers and the Giants. Those have been 3 of the 4 teams that they faced already, who are all 3 not very good. But they still have to play the Niners twice. They still get the Bengals, they get the Ravens, the Cowboys, and the Eagles, and a couple other teams that are just kind of, I'll call them mid, like Cleveland and Pittsburgh and Tennessee Titans run defense and stuff like that. Like, there should be opportunities, I think, hopefully moving forward, where Seattle has to throw more and where JSN just kind of has to be more involved in this offense, moving away from the wrist injury now after the bye. I think that like you said, there's still reasons why you should still buy low, but I am kind of worried. Like, I'm not, it's like that. I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious, on JSN right now. All right, 111 now. Let's reach over to a position that we haven't touched on yet. Let's go with our tight end 1, Sam LaPorta. And I feel like this is another guy kind of like Achane, where you could make an argument for him to be higher on this list after what he's done already. I mean, we could argue that Sam LaPorta has already solidified himself inside the top 5 dynasty tight ends, maybe even inside the top 3, depending on how you feel about Andrews or Kelsey from a dynasty perspective. Sam LaPorta could already be in people's top 3 dynasty tight ends, and I have really no issue with that whatsoever. I mean, he's looked absolutely fantastic. He's had, 4 or 5 receptions basically in every single game. He didn't have that last week, but he did have 2 touchdowns last week, and he's already on pace for one of the greatest rookie tight end seasons of all time. And he has to be a top 5 dynasty tight end and a top 12 rookie pick.
I think the only knock, if you want to poke holes, is like he hasn't been really utilized as a red zone weapon. He only has 2 red zone targets on the season, which long term you want to see that grow. That's typically where touchdown production is going to come from. And as like this Detroit offense, the way they utilize the red zone, it's
I
run,
was going
run,
to say
run,
only
run some
one
more.
person on this Lions offense actually gets red zone opportunity.
Right. So like long term, at least for the next couple of years, that could be a potential knock. But from a rookie tight end perspective, he's having a more impressive, arguably a more impressive rookie tight end season than Kyle Pitts had. Kyle Pitts went over 1,000. The touchdown production was a nightmare there. LaPorta is already showing that's not going to be an issue from everywhere else on the field. He's bringing in a 20% target share. He's doing things you don't see happen with rookie tight ends. The only reason he's not higher is like he has yet to prove to be like a true game breaking tight end. And that's going to come with time, right? He's not a guy right now that I think that's going to go for 100 plus yards. He doesn't have, at least yet, that Travis Kelce tier. Could he grow into that? Absolutely. I'm not going to say this is who he is. He's a rookie tight end, but that's just the only reason we're not, putting him ahead of JSN and other players that I think have significantly higher ceilings if things break the correct way. So to close it out, guys, and again, if you do want to see the second round of this rookie redraft, check out the DLF YouTube membership. But so anyways, to close it out at the 112 here, we are taking Quentin Johnston. I am giving him the benefit of the doubt with the draft capital he had, right? I'm not going to write Quentin Johnston off after 5 weeks. However, this is a guy that I think Addison and I were both not very high on coming into the season, and he hasn't done much to really change our opinion because you're looking at a guy with less than a 10% target share. And yes, he was operating alongside Keenan Allen, who is still a superstar, and then alongside Mike Williams, who was honestly solid prior to going down. So that does skew his numbers a little bit, but a less than 10% target share, like there are red flags with this profile right now. The only thing that is keeping him here for me is the first round draft capital, right? Is being tied to Justin Herbert. Mike Williams is out, so we're going to get a full season of potentially seeing what Quentin Johnston could turn into. You're hearing a lot of ifs and ands and buts, and that is what his profile is, though. That's what he was coming into the NFL, and I think all of those questions still exist.
I'm in the exact same place. And I mean, I feel like if you wanted to knock him for not really being all that productive the week before the bye, which was the first game without Mike Williams for the Chargers, I mean, I honestly, I expected that. Like, I expected Josh Palmer to be thrown into that wide receiver 2 role before Quentin Johnston, because I feel like, you don't want to accelerate your plans for your rookie, especially the week before their bye week. Like, it's just hard to implement a guy into your offense that quickly. Why not just, throw the Josh Palmer in, and he's already more familiar with the offense, has been in that position before, and then help install your rookie after their bye week. So I'm very curious to see what Quentin Johnston is going to do after this weekend of games, and then moving forward. Maybe his value rises if we were to have done this, in a week or two, more towards the end of October than the beginning of October. He could be up in that Addison or Flowers territory based on what he's done as the wide receiver 2 in LA. But again, it is, like you said, just more ifs and buts and possiblies and maybes. That is the Quentin Johnston profile to a T right now. But it's really just hasn't been anything to really say he should fall out of the first round completely. But there are a lot of red flags, and I think a lot more red flags with Quentin Johnston than there are with Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Because at least with JSN, we knew that he was going to have trouble stepping over DK and stepping over Tyler Lockett. We did not expect Quentin Johnston to have all that much difficulty stepping over Josh Palmer.
I think the nice part about this is with Mike Williams out, we don't have to go into next season saying, well, what happens when Mike Williams or Keenan Allen isn't there? Like, we get that now. for a full season. We get a ton of clarity. And if he falls underneath that rookie faceplant territory, under 500 yards, operating as the number 2, that's a whole different scenario. It's a whole different way to look at his value. So in a way, it's a blessing because we're going to find out real damn quick if Quentin Johnston is actually a guy or if he is just someone that we're going to forget about in 3 years.